parents told me. Stop pretending you're important, you're a waiter. I smiled and said, okay. Then they walked into my restaurant and saw my name on the sign. My parents always had a particular look when they talked about me, like they were apologizing to the world for my existence. They used to introduce my older brother Brian as the future doctor, and my sister Melissa as the genius who got into Yale. Me? I was the one who likes cooking. Said with the same tone you'd use if someone confessed they liked eating glue. From as early as I can remember, they'd shoot down anything that made me light up inside. When I was 10 and made them a 3-course meal for their anniversary, they smiled, nodded, and said, "That's sweet. But let's focus on real talents now." In high school, when I told them I wanted to go to culinary school, my dad snorted and said, "You mean a school where you learn how to flip burgers?" So I tried to be what they wanted. I wore the mask. Applied for accounting programs. Took the business classes. But cooking, that never left me. Late at night, I'd cook in secret. I'd watch food documentaries like other kids watched action movies. My notebooks weren't filled with math problems. They were filled with recipes and plating diagrams. They didn't know that at 19, when I got my first job as a waiter, it wasn't because I had no other option. It was strategy. I wanted to see the restaurant world from the ground up. I watched how the chefs prepped, how the servers moved, how the owners managed it all. But my parents? Oh, they couldn't let that slide. "You're pretending you're important. You're a waiter," my mom said one Thanksgiving, right in front of the extended family. Everyone chuckled. I just smiled and said, "Okay." It became a pattern. They'd mock me, humiliate me, remind me that I wasn't doing anything real. And I'd nod like it didn't matter. "Okay," I'd say. Over and over. They never knew those words were my armor. Because behind the scenes, I was building something they couldn't see. Something they'd never understand. The first time I felt a crack form in their perfect little narrative was during my 3rd year waiting tables at a high-end bistro downtown. I wasn't just slinging wine and smiling at brunchgoers, I was studying. Every night I asked questions no one else did. I watched Chef Anna break down her prep station like it was choreography. I stayed late to help clean, just so I could hear the kitchen staff vent, gossip, and teach. And slowly, they started letting me in. One day, Chef Anna handed me a knife and said, "You ever break down a duck?" I shook my head. She smiled. "Well, you're about to." That night, I stayed until 2 a.m. She didn't just teach me. She tested me. By year 4, I was doing short prep shifts before waiting tables. Quietly, consistently. And every extra tip I made? Straight into savings. No vacations. No luxuries. Just rent, food, and the dream. Meanwhile, back at home, nothing changed. My parents still made a show of shrugging when people asked about me. "Still waiting tables?" my dad would say with a sigh, like I was their family's burden. "He says he's learning, but I think he's just avoiding real life." Melissa once joked. "You're still doing that thing with the apron? What is it now, 4 years of side quests?" And like always, I smiled and said, "Okay." But then came the day my cousin Jordan brought his new girlfriend to a barbecue. She turned to me and said, "You work at Leo's, right? I love that place. Their duck confit changed my life." I just smiled. "It's a good spot." My mom overheard. Later that night, she said, "Don't get any ideas, sweetheart. Just because you work there doesn't mean you're anything more than a background prop." I looked at her, dead in the eyes, and said what I always said. "Okay." But this time, I think something in my face unnerved her. Like maybe she caught a glimpse of what was coming. A whisper of the storm they didn't see brewing in the quiet. It was my birthday. I wasn't expecting much. A quick dinner at my parents' house, maybe some off-brand cake, a recycled card from last year. I was used to it. But I still showed up, because I always showed up. Melissa was there in her signature smugness, going on about her latest consulting gig like she'd invented capitalism. Brian had his medical journal out on the table, flipping through it like we were all background noise. My parents? They were already 2 glasses of wine in and barely noticed when I walked in. No one said happy birthday. I sat down anyway. Halfway through the dry chicken and boxed potatoes, my dad set down his fork and cleared his throat. "You know," he started, looking directly at me for the first time that night, "if you spent as much time studying something real as you do playing around in kitchens, you might actually be someone by now." Melissa laughed softly. "Yeah, seriously. You've been doing this little waiter hobby how long now? 5 years? It's time to wake up." Brian smirked. "You know he thinks he's going to open a restaurant one day, right? Like just anyone can do that." I didn't speak. Just looked down at my plate. My mom tilted her head like I was a confused puppy. "Honey, stop pretending you're important. You're a waiter." That was the moment. The moment I didn't smile. No. Okay. No grin to diffuse the room. Just silence, and a long, still stare that made my mother falter mid-sip. I stood up. "You're right," I said quietly. "I am a waiter." And then I looked each of them in the eyes. "But I'm also a student. And a builder. And a silent storm you won't see coming until you're standing in the eye of it." Brian laughed. Melissa rolled her eyes. My father muttered something about me being too sensitive. But none of it mattered. Because they didn't know the land had already been purchased. The business license filed. The investor pitch made and accepted. The logo drawn, the name finalized. And every insult they threw that night? Fuel. Pure fuel. After that birthday dinner, something in me locked into place. I stopped trying to prove anything to them. I stopped replaying their words at night, stopped hoping they'd one day change their minds. I let go of the fantasy, and picked up the blueprint. I was still waiting tables, still prepping vegetables and bussing plates when needed. But now, every hour had purpose. I'd wake at 6, review supply chain logistics over breakfast, work a double shift, then spend my nights watching food cost spreadsheets like they were Netflix. I taught myself how to read a lease, how to negotiate contracts, how to work a walk-in fridge compressor if it failed at 2 a.m. I became obsessed. And here's the twist they never saw coming. I didn't do it alone. Because when you work in the restaurant world long enough, you meet others like you, quiet grinders, tired hands with sharp minds. I met Monica, a pastry chef who'd been passed over for promotion one too many times. And Anthony, a bartender who knew wine better than some sommeliers. They were hungry too. So we built together. I put every dollar I had into a tiny storefront, an old bank building with terrible lighting and asbestos in the ceiling. It smelled like mildew and regret. But I saw it. I saw her, the restaurant I'd dreamed of since I was a kid stirring soup on a stool in a kitchen that never noticed me. We gutted it. Painted it. Bled into it. Sometimes I'd work 16 hours and sleep on a cot in the office. Sometimes I'd wake up with cramps in my hands from holding a whisk too tight. I missed weddings, holidays, birthdays. But I didn't miss that version of me who used to shrink at their table. He was gone. 3 years. That's how long it took to go from broken ceiling tiles to crystal glassware and custom plateware flown in from a tiny ceramic studio in Vermont. And when we opened the doors for the first time? My name was on the sign. 5 letters in gold leaf, glinting against black slate, Callahan. That was the name they used to mumble like it was embarrassing. But now, people waited weeks for a table to say it. We'd been open for 6 months. The reviews had started rolling in, words like visionary, elevated yet soulful. And my personal favorite, an intimate experience that feels both new and nostalgic. We were booked out for weeks. Even the mayor's office had come through once. Though I didn't cook that night, I stood back and watched my team crush it without me. That was the real high. I was in the back one Thursday night, checking on prep for the next day, when Olivia, our host, peeked her head into the kitchen and said, Callahan? There's a couple up front, older, asked for a table under Bradley. You want to take this one? Bradley. That was my father's name. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked out, expecting maybe some corporate type using his wife's name or something. But as soon as I rounded the corner and saw them standing by the entryway, My mother in a deep green jacket, my father holding his phone like he was too busy for the world. I felt it in my chest like a sucker punch. They didn't recognize me at first. It had been years since we'd seen each other. I wasn't the same quiet kid from their living room. My hair was shorter, my posture stronger. I wore a suit now, not an apron. And I wasn't smiling. Olivia greeted them politely. "Table for two under Bradley?" My dad nodded, not looking up from his screen. "Yeah. And make sure it's not too close to the kitchen. We're celebrating." Celebrating. I almost asked, for what? But I bit my tongue and stepped forward, sliding in beside Olivia. "I'll seat them," I said. Calm. Controlled. And she handed me the menus without a word. "Right this way," I told them. I led them through the dining room, past the couples on dates, the wine glasses catching candlelight, the soft hum of conversation bouncing off warm wood and matte black. Everything designed, every inch, to feel like you were somewhere special. My mother glanced around, clearly impressed. "This place is lovely," she said, a little surprised. My father finally looked up. "Yeah. Not bad." I stopped by a corner booth with velvet cushions and gestured for them to sit. As I handed them their menus, I saw my father squint slightly at the wine list header, Callahan Tasting Room. He blinked. Looked around again. Is this named after the chef?" I nodded. "It is." My mom chuckled. "Funny. That's our last name, too." I leaned in, just enough so only they could hear. "I know." They both looked up at me, puzzled. And that's when I let it land. "I'm the owner. And the head chef. And the reason you had to wait 6 weeks for this reservation." Their faces froze. My mother's eyes went wide. My father looked like he'd swallowed something sharp. I straightened up. "Enjoy the evening," I said with a tight smile. "You're in for a memorable one." Then I turned and walked away, slowly, confidently, past tables of guests who had chosen to be here. People who saw value in what I created. And for once, I didn't feel small. I felt untouchable. I didn't go back to the kitchen right away. Instead, I stood near the bar, just out of sight, watching them. My father sat stiff, staring at the menu like it had betrayed him. My mother kept glancing around, trying to piece it together. And then, as if the universe was staging the scene itself, I saw her pick up the wine list again. She read my full name, Callahan James Bradley, embossed in gold. I watched her face fold in on itself. It wasn't shock anymore. It was shame. After about 20 minutes, I walked back to their table. Not as their son. As the owner. "Everything to your liking?" I asked, that same calm tone I'd mastered over years of swallowing insults. My mom looked up. Her voice was small. "This is your place?" I nodded. "Yes." She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. "I want to say something," I said, "and I want you to really listen. Not interrupt. Not explain. Just listen." They didn't move. So I continued. "You spent years telling me I was wasting my time. That my dream wasn't real. That I was just a waiter pretending to be important." I leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table, like I was offering them a taste of something rich and rare. "Do you have any idea what it's like to carry that weight every single day and still show up? Still work? Still build?" My father frowned. "We didn't mean." I said, "Don't interrupt." I cut in. My voice never rose. But it landed like thunder. "You mocked me in front of family. You laughed at my job. You told me I was delusional for wanting this. And I took it." I nodded. I smiled. I said, "Okay." I paused. But I never forgot. My mother looked like she was about to cry. I didn't care. I poured every insult into this place. Every time you said I'd never make it, I invested in learning. Every time you rolled your eyes, I rolled dough. Every joke became fuel. Then I stood up. "So tonight, while you sit in my restaurant, surrounded by people who paid to be here, who respect what I've built, I want you to understand something." I leaned in one last time. "This isn't forgiveness. This is clarity. Then I slid the check folder across the table. It's on the house. A small gift, from your unimportant waiter son. And just like that, I turned and walked away. Behind me, I didn't hear a word. Just silence. The kind that only follows a truth too big to argue with. I walked straight past the servers, past the hum of conversation and the clink of glasses, and back through the swinging doors into the kitchen. The smell hit me first, rosemary and charred lemon, butter just starting to brown in a hot pan. Steam rose from the pasta station, and the grill hissed like it had secrets to tell. It was chaos, but it was my chaos. Organized, alive, focused. Monica glanced up from the pass and caught my eye. "You good?" she asked. I nodded. More than good. Anthony, our bartender, peeked through the service window. "They figure it out?" I smirked. "Oh yeah?" The rest of the kitchen kept moving, but slower now. A few of the line cooks had caught wind of who was sitting at table 12. One of them, Louise, barely 20 and already sharper than I was at that age, gave me a look. Not sympathy. Not pity. Respect. I didn't say much else. I just stepped to the side, tied on my apron, and picked up a chef's knife. "You back on the line?" Monica asked, surprised. "Just for one dish," I said. I moved to station 4 and started slicing shallots. My hands knew the rhythm. The weight of the blade. The sound of a perfect dice landing on the board. This wasn't about showing off. This was about coming home to the only place I ever really belong. A place that never needed me to explain myself. A place that didn't care what anyone called me, so long as I showed up and did the work. We moved as a team, the way we always did. Tight. Clean. Quiet when needed, loud when it mattered. And somewhere, out in that dining room, the people who once mocked me were sitting at my table, surrounded by everything they told me I couldn't build. They were guests now. Not critics. Not family. Just guests. And I was the chef. Service went on like clockwork. Desserts were plated. Drinks poured. Laughter echoed through the dining room, but not from table 12. I didn't go back out there. Didn't need to. I'd said what needed to be said, and I'd said it standing tall. That part of me, the boy waiting for their approval, he didn't live here anymore. Around 10, after the rush had died down and the last course had gone out, Olivia came back to the kitchen, holding a folded napkin in her hand. "They left this," she said, handing it to me like it was something fragile. My name was scribbled on the outside. I opened it. Inside was a short note, my mother's handwriting. "We didn't know how to say it. We're sorry. We're proud of you. Please call us." For a second, I stared at the paper, tracing the curve of the letters like they might mean more if I held them long enough. But they didn't. Because what I wanted wasn't pride written in ink on a napkin. What I wanted was someone who had believed in me when I was nobody. When I was still just the kid with a dream and a bus tray full of dirty glasses. I folded the napkin once, then again, and set it down beside the dish pit. Let the steam and heat of the kitchen take it away. That chapter was closed. They could keep their too late apologies. I had something better. I had me. The restaurant closed at midnight. After the last table left, the team moved through cleanup like they always did, music low, towels flung over shoulders, pans soaking in the sink, the soft clatter of glassware being reset for tomorrow. There was a kind of sacred silence in it, one you don't get in other jobs. A silence that only comes after you've fed people. Nourished them. I walked the floor alone, checking every table, every corner like I always did before locking up. It was a ritual. Not for show. For me. To remind myself this was real. This was mine. I stopped at table 12. They'd left nothing behind but that folded napkin. No glasses out of place. No crumbs. Just the ghosts of a moment I'd imagined 1,000 times, but never quite like that. I pulled out one of the chairs and sat down. Just for a second. And it hit me. For years, I thought the big moment would feel like a movie. Spotlights. Fireworks. A standing ovation as I rose above their words, their laughter, their dismissal. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Like a king returning home, sword in hand, crown shining. But sitting there, in the quiet of my restaurant, what I actually felt was something different. Peace. Not loud. Not boastful. Just stillness. Because the truth was, I didn't build this to prove them wrong. I built it to prove me right. I didn't need the apology scribbled on a napkin. I didn't need their regret. And I sure as hell didn't need their pride. It had come too late, wrapped in too many years of silence and insults and condescension. No, what I needed, what I found, was family in the form of my staff. Monica, wiping down the pastry counter, eyes soft when she caught me looking. Anthony, restocking the bar with that calm, cool rhythm that held the whole place steady. Louise, still asking questions, still hungry to learn. They were my people. They saw me before the gold leaf sign. Before the awards. Before the wait list. And I saw them. And maybe that was the greatest revenge of all, not the reveal, not the cold smile, not the final "It's on the house." But the simple fact that I had built a world where I didn't need to be seen by the people who refused to see me. I had moved on. They were still playing the same tired game. But I'd rewritten the rules. And when I turned off the dining room lights, when the soft glow from the pendant lamps faded to dark and the kitchen lights clicked off one by one, I didn't walk out feeling victorious. I walked out feeling whole.